All right, I'm showing a little after 11, so let's call this meeting to order. Matt, if you could just go ahead and call the roll for us, and then we'll move right into the meeting.
Yes, sir. Chairman Brian Daniel,
Here?
Dr. Jay Kilgo, Mario Lozoya,
Here.
Vanessa Malo, Scott Norman,
Here.
Robert Ewell. Here. We have a quorum present.
All right, thank you very much. Next on my agenda says I'm supposed to give opening comments, which are welcome. Thanks, everybody, for coming. Be a good meeting today. A lot on the agenda. Joining us is Commissioner Trevino. Commissioner Trevino, would you like to make any comments?
Sure, I appreciate it. Apologize in advance because I'm just here to give my comments and speak to you, but we have to go to another event after this. But this is my start of my second year here as Commissioner representing labor at Texas Workforce Commission. I apologize for not making it earlier, but last year I had the idea to go visit all 28 workforce boards before the state conference. So it was pretty hectic. We were usually out of the office, so I apologize for not introducing myself earlier, but it also helped me get a chance to see what the boards, the educational institutions, and the employers were doing, and using the funds that this advisory board provides to those areas, and how it benefits not just the employers, but the community and the students and future workers as a whole, to teach them and upskill them and get them the equipment that they need to learn. Technology is always changing and it's very expensive. So these funds really help those educational institutions get the equipment that they need. And let me tell you, they are very frugal and come up with great ways to use that funds. They don't just spend it like somebody that, like, say I get an extra $1,000 and you just go blow it. No, they actually plan and think of how they're going to use those funds. So it was great for me to see that, and then to come and thank you for your leadership and dedication to take up this opportunity to be on the board. And just to know that the funds that are issued out of this board do supply a great needed help for the citizens of Texas. So I just wanted to say thank you. And just a little bit about myself too. I'm originally from Harlingen, Texas. Spent my whole career in law enforcement. So this is brand new to me, and it's a blessing. It's a chance for me to still continue to serve. I've met some of you all here, some I haven't. But whatever I can do, please don't hesitate to reach out to my office and ask. But I appreciate the time, and thanks to Chairman Daniel for letting me come and speak to you. But I'll open it up if anybody has any questions of me, and if not, I'll let you all get back to your day.
Looks like we covered it all.
Okay, I appreciate it. Thank you all so much.
Well, thanks for stopping by. We really appreciate it. This committee does, I mean, they do great work. We've got some new faces here, but the committee's been in place for a while. And, even today, we're gonna be making some good decisions. So we'll be seeing those here pretty soon.
All right. Well, thank you all.
Thanks, Commissioner.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Troman, is there any public comment?
Yes, sir, we do.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Good morning. Good morning, Chairman Daniel and distinguished board members. My name is Dr. Sari McCoy, and I'm very honored to be with you here today. As a former recipient of a JET grant many years ago in Rockville, Texas, I am just filled with joy to be able to be in person to say thank you. Truly, thank you. And I'm going to take the liberty on behalf of all former or current recipients, especially the secondary education space, to let you know that the JET grant is so much more than workforce development for that community. That blessing of the JET grant is a lifeline for many of our communities that are resource drought. And so they are very focused, just like Commissioner said, about making sure that the impact is cohorts after cohorts for lifelong time period. So thank you. Beyond my expression of gratitude to you today, we're here to share a couple of insights and perspectives that I hope you'll find meaningful as you continue the monumental task of awarding JET grants for years to come. I have the privilege of serving as the CEO of Coherent Cyber Education. We are a cybersecurity workforce development and Department of Labor registered apprenticeship program. And our focused attention is on creating quality cybersecurity talent pipelines for the state to address the current and future workforce gap, to provide the labor necessary to provide information and operational technology security, and to contribute to the tri-agency outcomes by offering a high-skilled, high-wage, living wage, high-demand career in cybersecurity for those who choose to have one. As we collaborate with stakeholders across the state, workforce boards, economic development councils, small and large businesses, chambers, academic institutions, we have discovered that there is a misconception in multiple regions. We've discovered that careers that are developing from emerging technology, innovative and advanced industries are only needed in select cities and in select regions or select industries. And that's truly not the case. So we've found ourselves contributing to the increased awareness of these careers and sharing the information with the regions and really connecting the dots that these careers are personal and therefore all individual well-beings and community well-beings and are applicable to any industry. So my first consideration that I'd like to propose to the board is I wonder, in a future iteration of a JET grant, we might include an addition to the application criteria. Currently, one of the criteria is that the career focus of the application needs to be on the high demand occupation list of that region. That's very important. And I wonder if in the future iteration, we could add the possibility of including an and/or career focus that's coming from one of these fields of study from emerging technologies, innovation, and advanced careers. I think that that will be a powerful way to encourage regional workforce developers to consider supporting talent development to meet current workforce demand and have a future focus. We're in a marketplace that has information exchange in real time, and industries must be agile enough to adjust quickly if they want to survive. So the majority of the future focused jobs that are coming from emerging technologies and innovative and advanced careers require the talent to execute their roles in a digital environment. So workforce developers need digital resources to be able to mirror real world marketplace while they're training high quality workforce for those industries and their communities. So my second consideration to propose to you is that perhaps in the next iteration of the JET grant, there's an inclusion of a review of the acceptable expenditures list that might include the ability to purchase digital resources, platforms, and things like that to be able to really give an authentic training experience for those who are going to be in a future focused career. Our regional workforce experience has really driven us to allocate a heavier focus on the secondary education setting, the ISD setting. ISDs have the numbers. If we are going to address a workforce gap, we go to where the masses are. They also have the heavier lift of launching that workforce development pathway that leads from an ISD, really K through 12 space, into talent developers that are maybe in the military or in 2 years or 4 year institutions, trade schools, things like that. ISDs really launch that process, and to launch a career path in any industry is an expensive venture. So I just thank you for keeping that in mind as you go through the process of distributing awards, for many years to come. And it's been my privilege to be able to be with you today to just share a couple of insights and considerations for you to think about as you continue this phenomenal work. And I want you to know that you have a friend in Coherent Cyber Education that is rolling up their sleeves to make sure we're doing our part to have a very secure, safe, and successful future in Texas. So thank you for your time today.
Thank you. Any further comment? That's it. All right. Thank you again. All right, well, Mario and Scott, we've got some new faces with us today, so
See that?
I wish I had probably thought to call ahead of time and tell them I was gonna put them on the spot, but I'm about to put them on the spot. We'll start here with Robert. Just tell us a little bit about yourself and you know, if you have any particular interest on this that you've already discovered, let us know that. Otherwise, if you're here to because you like the Jack Grant and you want to see Texas succeed, we'll take that too. But we'll
Sure.
just start
Well,
here.
I'm definitely want to see Texas succeed. My name is Robert Ewell. I'm a board member from Dallas. I am an attorney in Dallas who works on blockchain technology. So the cyber space is particularly interesting to me. I got into this because I wanted to serve. I connected with some of the folks in Dallas, and my wife was an educator for 5 years, a teacher. Long been a passionate advocate for education. I think education is the golden ticket to any successful career and lifelong opportunity. So I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to learn. I know I'm a fresh face, but I'm a quick study. So I'm excited to help out where I can, and looking forward to learning.
Well, we're definitely glad you're here. Over here.
Pleasure to be here today. My name is Vanessa Malo, and I am the Director of Workforce Education Initiatives at the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board. So thank you for the opportunity to be able to serve you. I started in the classroom. I used to teach Spanish back in the day in leadership courses, sixth grade through high school, and eventually worked my way through higher education and have the honor and the privilege to be able to be part of the coordinating board, but to be able to be a part of these processes. Just very much what's already been shared here early on is the opportunity for industry and education to work together collaboratively, and to be able to provide access and resources to our students, secondary and post-secondary is very critical. And so very grateful for all the hard work that you've done. So thank you for having me here today.
Sir, I'm Jay Kilgo. I'm superintendent at Vider ISD in Southeast Texas. I'm finishing my 12th year there. Prior to that, I was a high school principal for 7 years. So I'm especially aware of the impact of preparing students for a future life, the importance that holds for our young people, and I'm excited to be a part of this process.
This is definitely one of my favorite programs here at TWC. I'm not supposed to say that. Mr. Trump said not to say that, but it's true. Just because of the work we're able to do at both high schools and community colleges, and Mario and Scott have been on the committee now for a little while, and you know, I think they feel the same way. I'll give you guys a chance to say a few words if you want to.
I'd love to, and I'm glad to see the new faces, and especially hearing where they come from, and I can already see the potential impact they bring based on y'all's experiences. I'm glad to see you here, and I'm always glad to see the staff, and I'm always happy to come in and see what's possible through this board, because I've had the opportunity to visit several grant presentations, and to see the impact locally, like was mentioned earlier, is really huge and really satisfying to me to see it. And I hope the rest of you new members experience it as well. Thanks.
And likewise, welcome aboard, all the work with all of you on. I think this is an area, Chairman, where you can really see government helping, stepping in. A lot of times it's a little harder to touch a field with this direct, helping local school districts and secondary, post-secondary, really rewarding. Good to hear. I'm anxious to your staff report on interest in the program. I think it continues to go in the right direction. Been here a little while, and every year it seems like it's getting more and more known out there across the state. So looking forward to working with all of them.
And let me just double down on that. We're definitely looking forward to working with you. And like we tell all our volunteers, the pay is great and the hours are better. So we don't actually demand an awful lot, but we will take your input and commentary anytime you're ready to give it. It does not have to be in this meeting. If you hear something, see something, think you have a good idea, please let us know. We work constantly behind the scenes. We meet a couple times a year, 3 or 4 times a year. That's it. But the conversation goes on year round, and my phone line is always available. Call me, let me know what's going on, particularly if you're hearing things out there. This is a great program and a lot of schools benefit from. Scott, you said you liked hearing from staff. I think this is a good time for us to move right into that. Lori and Matt are here. Let's move to agenda item 3. This will be our program update and a data presentation for fiscal year 24. Take it away, guys.
Perfect, thank you. And before we dive into the data, I just wanted to give, I know many of us are looking at the board book for the first time, so I just wanted to give a quick overview of what we're looking at in the board book. So you'll obviously find the agenda on the cover sheet right there. Behind tab 1, you'll find the meeting minutes from last year's meeting in case we need to reference anything, or if you'd like to read that, you can find those meeting minutes there. Tab 2 is the data presentation printout. We'll get to that in just a second. And then behind tabs 3 and 4, you will find the IHE mass list. That's the Institution of Higher Education mass list. And behind tab 4 is the school district, that's ISD and Wyndham mass list. Behind tab 5, you'll find an overall summary that just covers all fiscal years from FY16 to now, giving you a picture of the JET program in total. And then behind tab 6 are the program parameters that we'll look at for next year. So I'll have you flip back to tab 2. We'll go ahead and cover some of the data from this year. Just real quick, a helpful look at a tool that we created last year. And if you don't mind, just quick turn at the monitor. This is actually a helpful tool on our JET homepage that shows all of the JET grants that we've been able to award since FY16. You can actually come up here and sort by fiscal year, so you can isolate it by different fiscal years, by different occupations, look for different areas of the state by workforce board, and then by different school type. You can sort by academic institution or school district there. So just a really neat tool to help break down all the different awards and where they're at all across the state. Okay, so for FY24, the program had $15 million. And based on the voting last year and the commission, that was split 60%, 40%. So 9 million for school districts and open enrollment charter schools and 6 million available for IHEs. On slide 4 for IHEs, you can see we had 37 total applications. 10 of those were disqualified, leaving us with 27 responsive. We are happy to report all 27 scored above the 55-point threshold and were eligible for award. And by all means, stop me if you have any questions. They typically do score well. I think that is one of the first that all of them met the minimum threshold.
I do have a question. Can you go back to the prior slide? I don't know if that was a related question here. Those 10 that were disqualified, do you have a breakdown of why, or what's the prominent reason or purpose?
Yeah, there were some new ones this year. We ran into several issues where applicants submitted last year's budget document. And part of the RFA states that you have to download the current documents and submit those in their entirety. So unfortunately, anyone who submitted last year's budget document was automatically disqualified. And I think several of those are represented in that 10.
So then are they informed of that?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thanks.
And of those 27 responsive, like I said, all of them met the minimum threshold. With the $6 million, we anticipate being able to award 25 awards for IHEs. 24 of those will be full awards, and one of those will be a partial. And just to explain that a little bit, obviously we work down the list based on the score. So any leftover amount of funding will be offered to that next institution as a partial award. The breakdown is 12 rural districts, 15 urban districts, and benefiting a little over 2,200 students. On slide 6, you'll see an IHE breakdown for the occupations potentially awarded. I would like to note, I know we typically see quite a few welding awards, and on the school district side, it was still a prominent occupation, but there was only one welding occupation for the IHEs. And then one other I'll note is the semiconductor processing technician. That's an occupation that is obviously going to be much more popular moving forward, and one that we haven't seen historically in the program. So it's encouraging to see industry and the applications really aligning to meet new high demand occupations emerging in these communities. And that wasn't the only application we received for semiconductor. I believe that is the only award for semiconductor, though. Moving on to school districts. We had a great turnout for school districts. We had 157 total applications. 54 of those were disqualified, and to Mario's question earlier, and to my point, I think a significant amount of those unfortunately submitted budget documentation from last year and were automatically disqualified. But that did leave us with 103 responsive, and of the 103, only 12 did not meet the minimum threshold. So that left us 91 applications eligible for award.
Hey, Matt, I want to insert something here, specifically regarding those that met the point threshold, both for IHEs and school districts. One of the updates that staff made to the process this year was to add a scoring worksheet where the applicant could track their score as they were developing their application. So in theory, even those that were the 12 that were under the 55 points should have been able to determine that they were going to be under the 55 points. And I think that that's for IHEs, they made sure that they were submitting a quality application that scored, hopefully well above the minimum point threshold. And the vast majority of the school districts did as well.
So you're saying that even though, let's say I'm in a school district where, even though I know that I'm not meeting the threshold, I'm still submitting. Is that?
I'm not exactly sure what they said to themselves, but they had a worksheet that they could track their score and calculate their score.
Okay, got it.
And practicing for next
Yeah.
Yes, it was a warm-up round.
And you noted that you're automatically disqualified if you don't submit the correct budget. Is there any sort of curative process to that application, or it's just if you don't submit it correctly, you're done for the year?
Yeah, unfortunately, this budget workbook looks a little different than last year's. So that was an automatic indication that it wasn't the correct document. But unfortunately, based on the language in the RFA, there isn't much workaround with that.
And that isn't the only reason. I mean, yes, there were several applicants
Yeah.
that did that. There were other things like, people don't sign their application. Well, if they don't sign their application, and all of these things are listed as disqualification, criteria in the RFA. So, there is a list, and if you don't complete one of those items on the list,
And
yeah,
so if
it's
you
very
don't,
transparent.
if you make that error and even though it's before the deadline, there's no way to get it.
They can resubmit their application with the completed documents and the corrected documents, but that would have to have happened before the deadline.
And so what you're saying is perhaps some of these came in after the deadline, there was not time for them to fix.
Yeah, or they were missing components of the application altogether, so there was not time for them to submit the whole thing.
But school staff will work with the districts. or
They
guide
will
them.
be notified, so this year they'll be notified of the reason they were disqualified, if it was a disqualification. Or they will receive a notification if they just weren't funded. And during the process, maybe, and as you'll see, obviously, there are going to be still quite a few that go unfunded based upon the availability of funds. So they will be notified. There are also times where we just have an ineligible applicant. And I think that this was true on the IHE side. We had universities apply, even though they're not allowed under the statute to apply. So there are many factors that might contribute to that. Some of which are out of their control, like if you're a university, there's nothing you can do to your application to make it eligible. Some of them are well within their control, like signing your application or using the correct application.
Understanding we're dealing with limited bandwidth, is there any capacity to notify, maybe this is already happening, to notify applicants who do apply with, 2 weeks, a month prior to the deadline that you submitted the wrong document, your document isn't signed, those kind of technical errors? Is there any capacity to do that, or is that already happening?
It is not happening because we don't even open the applications until the deadline. Because there could be multiple applications submitted that overwrite their prior application, things like that. We look at all of them in their entirety after the deadline passes. You know, it's certainly something we can look at the process and see that there's an opportunity to do that. I promise where we have had flexibility to allow for applications to be evaluated, we have exercised that. It's really whenever the application process specifically says this will cause your application to be disqualified, that, you know, there's no flexibility there. So unfortunately, you know, things like,
When working with limited funds, gotta reward one.
yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
So,
Makes sense. At the same time, I mean, that's a huge number. That's 54, right? 50% of what is qualified. We don't want to lose them, right? If there's some interest, we want to maintain that interest. For me, is how do we keep growing the demand? Things in the future, we have to present to the ledge that there is demand. You know, we can't be asking for more money or be more impactful when there isn't any demand. So I think by showing some interest, we need to maintain that interest somehow.
I think staff needs to follow up with those people and have a conversation. This is why,
Mhm.
Yeah.
nothing against you, you just need to follow the direction.
Yeah, I think that they would expect their students to follow the directions.
Of course, but we want to,
No.
we just want to keep that interest.
Technical
and just
assistance
keep
for
them
sure. We just
calm.
can't do it during the application process.
Yeah, and to that point, I think the program has grown so significantly over the past few years, and we'll kind of look at that on the overall summary. But I think we had 196 applications, so just the difficulty to review each application. Typically, the RFA windows only open for 30 to 40 days. So that would really put us in a bind to review everyone's information and make sure it was correct, and then get back to them in that amount of time as well.
Thank you.
Okay, sticking with school districts and charter schools, of those 91 who met the threshold and were eligible for award, we anticipate 35 total awards for the full $9 million. That is 34 full awards and 1 partial award for $135,027. We did look at a little different community type breakdown this year, so we looked at the NCES breakdown. So that broke out to 28 rural districts, and you'll see that breakdown right below. 10 town, 18 rural, and then 7 urban districts, and those are broken down by city and suburban. And those awards would benefit 5,025 students in the first year of the grant. Looking at a occupation breakdown for school districts. Obviously, we still see that welding was a popular one, not near as popular as previous years. But still, to my point about IHEs, encouraged to see nursing and licensed practical and vocational nurses in such high demand. And again, such a high demand occupation all across the state. So again, encouraged to see this aligning with the need all across Texas. Several others in the healthcare space, nursing assistant, medical dosimetrists, and medical assistants. And then a few in the engineering field, civil engineers, electronic engineers, and then some tractor trailer truck drivers as well. And then I will kind of gloss over this, but that is just a more detailed breakdown of what those NCES community types, those are just the definitions.
And then a comment
yeah.
for this. This is really important, and in that we've made some strides to change. Remember, we went from 50 to 60-40. And some of the comments at the time were that school districts are encouraged to partner with community colleges down the street. But my point was that some are not even near those small towns, right? So it's very difficult for those small school districts to partner with a community college when they're like way too far away to do that, right? So this kind of information is important from that point of.
Yeah, we thought this was a truer breakdown instead of just classifying them as urban and rural. This gave us a little bit more detail about what the community type was. And then a WDA breakdown. I'm sorry, that's a little small on the printout. I will note, we had an application, either an IHE or an ISD breakdown from all 28 workforce boards. I also think that is a first, that all of them were represented. And 24 of those 28 will be receiving a potential award. Yep, so that breakdown is in front of you there. And then just some other program data that we found interesting, and this could align with the number of disqualifications. Obviously, those folks aren't represented in these numbers, but we did have a lot of first-time applicants and a lot of applicants who had not received a JET grant over the past 3 years. One of the criteria that we look at is whether they've received a JET grant, not just before, but over the past 3 years. If you remember, and for our new members, in FY 22, we had a large increase in funding, so we allowed applicants more than one opportunity at an award. School districts could receive 3, and IHEs could receive up to 2 awards. So again, just trying to keep the pie as even as possible and give folks as much access to these funds as possible. So
That's gone away.
I'm sorry.
That's gone away now, that's just because of it.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So this year it was just 1 and 1. So of all responsive applicants, the 129 total, 75 of those had not received a JET grant in the past, including 29 of the potential awardees. And then of all responsive applicants, 88 hadn't received a JET grant in the past 3 years, including 35 of the potential awardees. So that could have been, and having reviewed the lists, there were a lot of new names and new faces in the awards, and that's great. To Mario's point, I think the marketing has worked, and the fact that all 28 workforce boards were present with at least 1 award is certainly encouraging. That the marketing and the statewide webinars that Lori and I hosted in the off season, they had an impact. And then of those awards, 18 of those, we do look at whether it's a brand new program starting from fresh or if it's something that they're expanding. 18 of those are brand new programs and 42 of those are expanded. And again, I'm happy to answer any other questions.
I have a question to the lady's comments earlier. Where does software fall in our funding? Does it qualify? Or
If it's connected to an equipment to help it operate.
it has to be connected to equipment?
So that was a change, right? I think initially it was not, or it always has
I
been.
think it's always
Has
been,
been?
yeah,
Okay.
the exception.
When you talk about equipment, are you talking about servers or computer monitor, that kind of thing, or other types of equipment?
Right,
related
any
to
equipment. So if it's a welding bay, for example, and they need a welder to figure out how to get them, the MIG measurements right or whatever, then they can, if it's connected to that
Sure. And it
device,
doesn't,
they can.
be clear, does it have to be connected to equipment that we're funding?
Yes,
Yes, sir.
it has to be necessary to the operation of the funded or requested equipment.
It can't just be the equipment they already have.
It cannot be equipment they already have, because that would not really be expanding their.
What about other than equipment? So software's one. Is there anything like teacher development, training for the new equipment, anything like that?
So
It's allowable.
if, and many companies that sell the equipment do offer training. If it is necessary for the operation of the equipment, as part of the equipment request, they can request installation. Those trainers can come out and provide some training. But like dedicated courses to train CTE instructors, for instance, that's not allowable, just training per se, but actually how to use the equipment as a necessary cost, then that can be considered.
Thank you.
Right. Any other questions? Let's move into agenda item 4, this discussion consideration possible action regarding grants to public community colleges, public technical institutes, public state colleges, open enrollment charter schools, and school districts.
And that is tab 3. You will find the IHE mass list. If you flip it over, you can see all 27 IHE applicants who met the minimum threshold are represented on this list. And then at the end, just a little bit of a breakdown for the full funded. Again, that's 24 full awards. The one partial, which falls at rank 25. Again, for the full $6 million.
So only two are.
Yes, sir.
So just to clarify again, for everybody here, so those two are not getting funded. They did meet the threshold, but we ran out of money.
Yes, sir.
Right.
And just to give the new board members, I referenced this earlier, so we rank all applications by their score and their requested amount. Again, that can range from 40,000 to 350,000. Anything asked beyond those parameters is an automatic disqualifier. So you'll see the grant amount in the fourth column. Those numbers are going to vary. And then the column next to it is just a cumulative total. And we total that all the way until we get to as close to the $6 million as possible. And again, that's why we have that $86,000 left over as the partial.
And I want to add one thing I think was really important for the board members to know. We are in the process of closing out some of last year's grants. If additional funds become available through that closeout process. So let's just say we had a grant that was encumbered for 300,000 and the grantee comes back and only spent 275,000. You know, the equipment was less than, cost less than they estimated to still serve the same number of students. That savings, so to speak, could be potentially applied to additional grantees on this list or applicants on this list. So although you'll be making recommendations based upon the list you see before you, we always ask that we have the flexibility to be able to move down the list as additional funds may become available.
So right now you require board approval to do that, but you're saying typically we ask for the staff asks for flexibility to go ahead and make the call.
Yeah.
Without calling any.
Yes,
Yeah.
so in the recommendation that you would be making to the commission today, we would ask that you recommend and, that we would have that flexibility.
If you don't have any additional questions for IHEs, we can go to tab 4 and where we'll find the school district list. This list is a little bit more extensive, obviously with the 91 applicants who met the minimum threshold. And on that back page, just to recover the awards, 34 fully funded awards for $8,864,973. Leaving with us one partially funded award for $135,027 for the full 3,500. And if you wanted to see where those awards stopped, that's on page 4 of 10. Very competitive scoring all across the board this year, not only in IHEs, but just to highlight that the minimum score being funded on the potential list is a 70.
Cause you guys not gonna say something. So you're looking. I wonder what the percent is, cause that's my interest is not only this year, but year after year, what's the percent of those that meet the threshold but are not funded? I wonder if that's something you can add to the presentation, because that might be very helpful going forward if we should have that opportunity in front of the ledge saying, look, by percent, this number's growing and we can't meet the demand, right?
I don't have percentages. I know with some of the scoring tweaks we made this year, The IHE average went up from about 64.2 last year to 73.9 this year. And that was an average amongst all the responsive. And then the school district average really didn't change that much, 67.3 to 65.8 this year.
And if we look at the summary over time, we could probably do some quick math for you. If either looking at the total number of applications received over the life of the program, 1,135, compared to the number that we have funded, 435. Or if we were to only look at those that met, that were considered responsive, 887, but only 435, so about half.
And I'll remind you that we moved the threshold number.
Yes,
Right, which
absolutely.
creates another buffer, right?
Yes, yes,
So maybe the number is even larger,
yes.
I'm guessing.
So there are some calculations that we can do and provide you with that information.
Trend lines are all very positive.
Definitely.
Any additional discussion? We do need to make a recommendation on these to the commission. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
So that's the action we would need to take on these two lists. You can do it all at once, absolutely.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move that we set these recommendations with the flexibility to spend funds as they go down the list of other funds available.
I'd like to second that.
Right. Motion by Scott Norman, seconded by Robert Buell. Any discussion on the motion?
Do want to point out that my school district did apply for one of these, so I will recuse myself from anything associated with that.
All right.
Thank you.
Look, just like my record show that I will not be voting, this is the district was an applicant on the. All right, any other discussion on the motion? All right, with that, let's put it to a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. I hear no dissenting votes. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Moving into agenda item 5. This is discussion, consideration, possible action on program funding and parameters for fiscal year 25 debt grant for public junior colleges, public technical institutes, public state colleges, open enrollment charter schools, and school districts.
Perfect. So these are program parameters for next year's RFA for FY 25. The first category would be funding allocation. Historically, we have split the funding 60% and 40%. And staff sees no reason to alter that at this time.
I'd like to comment on this. I personally would like to see it move to 70-30, maybe even 65-35 in favor of the ISD based on the numbers. But I wonder if it's not the right time. I see the numbers showing that trend, right? That's why I keep asking these questions about percents. I wonder if the staff can you hear the next meeting, maybe recommend a trigger point? Like say, once we get to this particular window, we should consider then adjusting the percent or not, right? Or maybe say, no, we should just stay there based on your recommendation. I'd like to, Mr. Chairman, I don't know if that requires a motion or not, or just asking the staff to consider the numbers, the trends, like you mentioned.
Well, no, I don't think we need a motion. Just ask staff to bring information back to us at the next meeting. Do that. But do think about it. Do think about it like this in terms of, you saw almost all of your eligible higher education institutions
Right.
get funded. You saw about a third of the eligible public schools get funded. Now each public school is working with an IHE, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct.
Yeah,
Correct.
so IHEs are represented on both lists. Now, we want that collaboration with the public schools, mostly high schools, and the community colleges, because we'd like to see those connections in place. I will also
scoring.
Yeah.
Isn't that a big point?
It is a point of scoring, yeah.
If they don't actually, for an ISD, if they do not have a collaboration with an IHE, then that is also a disqualifier. The statute requires that they collaborate with
where I was headed is, you know, when I'm out and about, like, I have seen some phenomenal collaborations where a higher education, in this case, a community college, built a state-of-the-art, it's actually a chemical process unit. They have built a state-of-the-art chemical process unit working with local chemical companies, and easily a dozen high schools use this facility, and they teach their CTE courses there, and they share that, community college shares that willingly with the high schools because that's a model that works in their area. And so that there's a good collaborative model. Another good collaborative model, you know, if I was in Southeast Texas, for example, I think it's viable to say, you know better than I, you know, if Lamar wants to work on it, football high schools want to work on it, probably gonna happen. And it's probably gonna happen right, because Lamar can muster industry involvement. The high schools have, you know, ready access to a lot of capable young people that want to work on that and do that. But if, for example, Dr. Killer is sitting here, so we'll say if Vider wants their own relationship with Lamar or TSDC or somebody who's operating in that area, you know, then he's going to be able to do that as well. Mario, you make a good point in the sense that I do appreciate the need for this advisory board to look at the percentages, you know, what percentage of community colleges are accessing this versus what percentage of ISDs. And I think if staff brings you that data, but even today, I think there is a discussion point, whether or not you want to change your funding availability from 60-40 to something else. You can also think about the fact that is 55 points really enough to say that you're an eligible application? I mean, that's a D.
Right.
It's not even a D plus.
Yeah. And we had that before. I think we adjusted that,
Yes, sir.
that threshold. I don't remember.
I
2
think
years
from
ago,
16
3
to
years ago.
20, it was 60. And then we lowered it just to
Right.
allow more application.
Participation is so much lower.
It was,
So
yes,
it
sir.
may make sense
You've
to
solved your participation
Right.
problem as an advisory board. We do not have that issue anymore. We now have the opposite issue. We've got great participation.
Yeah.
More and more of the applications are phenomenally solid applications. Schools have really responded. They're sending good stuff. There's always going to be people who don't get funded every year. The funding amount will probably never equal the demand. Because if it does, we're not doing our job and we're going to step up our outreach efforts. So you can always expect to see a lag, but you know, if 55 last year was acceptable, you know, maybe it's 55 again, maybe it's 60, maybe it's 70, I don't know. But
Right.
you have multiple ways to make sure that you are getting what you want to get out of the program and be able to recommend that to the commission. I would say to you though, however we had it set this time, we covered 24, 28 boards for the first time in a long time. And if you'll look, rural schools really probably dominate the discussion. Now, our definition of rural here is pretty loose. I mean, you can still see the skyline and still be rural. I don't know about that. But that's the definition. Yeah, that, you know, if we were interested, not so much in it going to, you know, downtown, you know, metropolis of Georgetown, which I get, you know, we wanted Gerald or Salado or one of the other schools to get it. I'd say what we're doing probably is giving those schools the kind of latitude they need to also apply, which is important to me. Because I think when we're forming these, I really detest the use of the word pipeline, but I can't think of another word. When we form these pipelines of workers and we're putting young people and students into these pipelines, you know, it can't all just be Austin ISD, nor can it be Round Rock and Georgetown ISD. We've got to move out past that because the jobs are going to move out. I mean, Samsung's already built in Williamson County.
That's right.
And then there's Bell County, and then there's Milam County, and the list goes on. And that's happening everywhere. Beaumont, you know, continues to grow. I think the communities around Beaumont are growing along with Beaumont, but they don't grow at that rate. You can say that for Lubbock, you can say that for Abilene, you can say that for Corpus Christi, you can say that for Kingsville. The valley's growing phenomenally. El Paso is quite the juggernaut these days. I mean, let's face facts. All of us who have been involved in economic development in Texas have 100% been doing our jobs because everywhere you look in the state, you're seeing incredible amounts of job creation. But we do know that 100 rural counties continue to lose population. They continue to lose jobs from their community. We've added 1.1 million jobs since May of 2020. At the same time, 100 of our counties have lost jobs. And we find ourselves today in a scenario where 90% of the 14.5 million jobs in the state are in 50 counties. That's natural. That's economics at work. That's how the marketplace works. But I think we have a vision, or at least we have had a vision at this advisory board, that we want to make sure that we're including as many people as we can in the success. And I'd say that the numbers have succeeded. If we're interested in making changes, that's certainly a recommendation you can make to the commission. And I think it's well warranted off of what you're seeing, but manipulating the minimum score, which is perfectly within your purview, is a way to do that. Changing the funding allocation is a way to do that. If you want the funding allocation to be trigger based, so be it. Staff can definitely bring us that. But you've seen good geographic coverage based on what you did last time. You've seen really good coverage across industries. Like everything's not welding this stuff. We're actually addressing lots of different opportunities within the Texas workforce, and you'll see a lot of healthcare in there, which is our #1 need statewide at this point. So decisions you've made have yielded some phenomenal results. Remember, the legislature doubled the funding for this the last time we had a chance to get that done, and so look, everything's trending in the right direction here.
The one I'm most interested in, I'd love your staff feedback, is the minimum score threshold, 55. I mean, based on the growth in the program, so it started at 60 and back to 55. Here we are and have all these applications. Should we at least raise it to 60? That's something. I mean, do y'all see negative ramifications of that?
We don't. And if you notice, that category is no longer minimum point threshold. We called it minimum score threshold because we were actually interested in looking right now, everything is based off of 100 points. And when Lori and I broke down the scoring and made some of the tweaks, we actually had to remove several categories that we thought were vital, or at least somewhat should be included in the application process, just because with only 100 points available, we felt like we were dicing all of these categories up so small that their point weight wasn't really relevant at that point. So we had to.
They might have been reported.
Absolutely. So if we went based on a percentage of the points available, and I still think we can raise that because out of 100, we're still dealing with 55%.
We have a 100-point scale this time.
Yes, sir.
All right, so if you raised it to 60, you would have only have eliminated 2 IHEs from consideration.
Yeah, the school district side would have gone from 91 to 69.
Yeah. So
And
even going from 55 points, which was 55%, to, you're saying change the paradigm, we want to go to 60% or 55%, whatever it is, because we might have 200 points. You just need to get 60% of the available points. Yeah. But even if we just making, Scott suggesting maybe go to 60, two universities, what, 12 ISDs is all that would have been impacted by that. And we don't know that they wouldn't have improved their point total using the tool once they knew what the new metric would be. So it may not even been that they would have been eliminated. They might have just.
Mr. Chairman, I think limited funds is incumbent on us to try to encourage the best applications we can get. I mean, we want these districts and our area to everyone else to think outside the box and try to push forward to do the best application we can.
So let's definitely roll this advisory back. Yeah, your expertise is needed to maximize our performance and participation.
And even if the total point change, just looking at this year, if we were basing it off 60 points, again, the minimum point threshold that would have scored or been potentially awarded was 70. So we're still 10 points out of that. So I do think moving it up to a percentage and maybe a 60% of the total points available, I think that would be staff's recommendation. And just to point out, 65 points, just to go up even more, that would have left us with 21 IHEs, and we would have had funding left over. We wouldn't have had enough eligible applicants to fill. We would have had approximately $1.8 million left. And the school district amount would have dropped all the way to 55 from 91 at 55 points.
We definitely don't have a whole bunch of money.
No, we don't have any money left over, but, and I think think there's some happy middle ground here. I will also say, you know, most people know both my parents are retired educators. My dad was a retired administrator. You know, if you move the goal, they'll move with it. I mean, they're not gonna leave the money on the table. So I think, you know, what looks good today, if it has to look different tomorrow, it'll look different tomorrow. But I think to your point, I don't think we make a sudden move here today. I think we
Right.
make an incremental move and
Right.
it signal your intent, I think is what you want to do.
Agree.
All right, let's do this just for interest of process, because I think we can wrap all this up in one motion. Let's go ahead and talk about minimum, maximum grant amount and then number of applications per eligible applicant. And then I think we can wrap all this up in one.
My feeling to expedite it, unless y'all have something different, it seems to be working. So do we need to upset the apple cart?
Just to Mario's point, if we moved it to 65%, that would give school districts an extra 750,000. And for this year, that would have led to approximately 4 more awards, 3 full and 1 partial. Obviously, the IHE side would have come down a little bit as the numbers are inverses of
I'm
each
open
other.
to that, but I wouldn't want to go.
And to the chairman's point, you know, that sends a message, right, that we're making adjustments based on the demand. Sure. I think that's a good move.
65, 39.
I think because we had so many unique applicants this year, keeping the applicant count at 1 applicant per eligible entities. Are
So this would be for the following.
This will be for fiscal 25. Which starts.
Yeah, I think it's important if we keep it at 1. We put it, I mean, important to spread this amount and stay for a whole lot of reasons.
I assume there's no change in the recommendation for 40,000 to 350,000. I don't think there needs to be, but
We did have internal conversations about whether equipment is getting more expensive or as we see some of
The
these.
answer to that would be yes.
You might want to watch,
Yeah.
you might want to watch the upper end of that. I would encourage you to do that because any type of equipment where we would want to simulate a clean room like we would see in silicon chip manufacturing, that's probably not achievable at 350,000. You're not going to be able to do any kind of chemical process work where you have to really outfit a laboratory for 350,000. Now,
They're gonna have to partner.
they're gonna have to partner, so we probably do wanna be cognizant of inflationary pressure on what it's actually costing the schools to put in the necessary equipment, but. You know, the price of the simulated nursing mannequins that they use, the simulated equipment, I mean, that's up too,
Expensive.
so. You know, it's just to the extent of how much are we willing to pay for? We've always said we're not probably gonna do 100% of any one project because there will be other partners. You don't need to change it today necessarily, but do be thinking about that because the schools, the pressure on the school for the prices, I mean, that's pretty real in my opinion, and we just need to be mindful of that.
So I think one of the things that we have seen to the point about the cost of equipment is perhaps a school would just buy fewer of the thing, whatever that is. So if it's welding machines or, you know, a full welding booth, they might just have fewer, which may equate to fewer students served in certain instances, just based upon, you know, the available funding, you know, they can apply
We
for.
can do it. I mean, if we're gonna do it, you know, 40 to 400 instead of 40 to 350. Obviously, what we're seeing inflation across every.
support that, an incremental along, every piece along the way, except for the one applicant that, you know, maybe you go to 65, you go to 400, and you go to 60 minimum score, let's say.
Do you know, Matt, offhand, how many projects were over 350,000?
They're limited at 300.
Yeah, or who asked for 350?
Yeah, who asked for 350?
I don't. Typically, they're smart and they ask for,
All of it.
but if you look at the school districts, rank 2, 3, 4, 7, 9, and 10. So just out of the top 10, 70% asked for the full 350,000.
So you're, you know, if you go up to 50,000 now, then that's another 350,000 that just went to the top.
Yeah, I will note when we had a higher threshold, that was in 2022, again, you know, we were very fortunate to have some additional funding And for school districts, we allowed up to 750,000. Even at that amount, we had applications coming in at 700. I'm not suggesting that that's,
You're telling me school administrators see the vaccine and then apply for that.
be kind, there's a school administrator sitting next to me.
Well, they go for it.
All that
Yeah.
being said, should we be careful and just make it 375 instead of 350? I mean, instead of 400.
I
I think the
think
chairman makes a good point. What we're doing is we're potentially,
you're shifting the numbers up the line.
and you're cutting out limited fund, cutting out.
You'll limit awards.
The
You know,
Applications expand to, fit the,
Yeah.
I think
Boils
it,
there.
it allows for the same point that the chairman made, or we're sending a message, right, that we're looking at it and we're creating change. And we can see what it looks like next time around. Maybe we missed the mark, we gotta come back or move it again.
Feel comfortable with that?
Yeah, I did want to point out our graduation plans have moved more toward an emphasis on being career ready. So we've got more students going to that path, away from college ready to career ready. And we, of course, we want both. We want them to be prepared for either. But items do cost more. And funding has been a particular challenge for public schools the last couple of years. So all of those working in conjunction, moving that limit up would be appreciated.
I think I'm accurate when I'm saying, I'll caveat, because I don't know exactly all the ins and outs, but I think for school to do a significant CTE laboratory renovation, probably that's gonna have to go on the bond election. At that time. But in most communities, bond elections, that's not part of the process anymore. There's a lot of community debate. And so I'm not saying we should short-circuit the taxpayers. We should never do that. But this program exists for schools to be able to make career education decisions more quickly. So, I think that's something we keep in mind too. So you have a little $400,000 project. That's probably, even in a smaller school, that's probably not something that, it runs to the top of the list in a bond election. We're having to build elementary schools and everything else. By the same token, if they're gonna go much bigger than kind of what we're doing, they're gonna find other partnerships to do that. There are other avenues to do that. It's just what we're trying to do is the legislatures entrust us with some tax dollars. They think TWC and this advisory board can make good decisions with this money. And what we're trying to do is make sure that, the maximum number of kids get the opportunity to prepare themselves for a career. And like you said, I think as TPA continues to make refinements around what constitutes career ready on the list. College ready, we can measure military, but we can get a record of that. They do continue to make some changes and some fine tuning on what constitutes career ready. And the way we revamp CTE, I think a lot of CTE teachers in their laboratories are going to have to make some incremental changes. This program, I think, presents a cost-effective and fairly efficient way for a school to go in and make a small renovation, upgrades, and to be able to ready for that. Okay.
I'll move, we change plan allocations, 35, IRS 65. Charter school districts. Max amount change from 350 to 375,000. And no change in the number of applicants per district or school. The change in minimum score threshold to 60.
There's a second.
I second.
All right, a second. All right, any discussion on it? Okay, hearing no discussion, we'll vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Hearing no dissenting votes, motion passes unanimous. Right, next on our agenda is agenda item 6, discussion, consideration, possible action on any future board meeting.
No info on future board meetings, but we will continue to stay in contact with you for those jet check presentations. Obviously, those are happening all across the state. I think we are down to our last number of them now. We actually had one today. That's why Commissioner Esparza is not with us. He's at Paris Junior College celebrating a jet grant there today. But we'll continue to notify you. I know Mario has traveled to several outside of the valley. So if you're willing, and there's some that are in your area or just a little bit outside, we'd love to see you at those different events. That's where it really highlights what these funds are being used for, and the students it's impacting. It's pretty neat to see the students leading the demonstrations, whether it's with the sim mannequins or the new welders. Some of the welding equipment, the chairman was working on the welders they were replacing, not to show his age by any means, but just to, again, highlight.
Let me just say, if the students are still working on the same welding equipment on which I learned to weld, that school needs an upgrade.
Yeah, yes, sir.
Technology
Big
has
time.
far surpassed where they were.
Yes, sir.
We were still using.
Now you're spelling, how do you weld?
You know what? I'm glad they didn't X-ray them. I've lost some technique, let's just say that. But they have, and they have, those wire feed welders are amazing. Wish we had that when I was doing this. Matt makes a great point. Do comment if you can. I know everybody has other responsibilities. This is a volunteer role. I had asked that they batch them up, so I was doing 10, 12 checks at a time. We had a great one down in Beaumont at Lamar. We had schools from all over. We had another great one in Corpus Christi. I think about a dozen schools with that one. A lot of excitement. I've actually done 2 in Corpus where we had at least 4 or 5 schools at each one.
Delmar.
Was it? Yeah, both. We were at both of them, and these teachers are excited when they bring the students. They're excited. One of the ones in Corpus, they brought their maritime students that are learning to be ship pilots and different things. I mean, that's not a career we see a lot of here in Central Texas. And so it was fun to talk to students who got their eye on the prize, teachers helping them get there, schools doing their job, community colleges involved. Like they used to say on that one TV show, I love it when a plan comes together, because we were seeing it that day. And just the excitement for a little bit of work to get the grant, make the changes at the school, but to be able to watch those students be able to put that immediately into action. I mean, they were getting certificates, licenses and other things. And I'm like, that's why I'm in this business. I got to be able to see that, guys. All right. So we'll let you know. We'll probably poll the group on the next necessary board meeting. In the meantime, please don't forget any good ideas, anything you think of, you're driving home today, you thought of something we should say, call us back. Let us know what that is. Is there anything else we want to discuss here today, Mario?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, before we leave, but regarding the guest speaker and some of the comments made, I wonder if it's appropriate for us to ask the staff to give some information on some of one of these emerging markets, emerging industries that are gapped. I have the experience when we stood up Toyota in San Antonio. We literally asked the community for robot technicians, and it was crickets, right? And so you have a lot of that happening around Texas, where I can imagine Tesla here in the area asking for certain skill sets that are not available. And it's very difficult for school districts and community colleges to rev up the programs in time for hiring. And what happens is then these big companies are moving with or without that worker from the community. So they'll bring people from the outside, which is what we don't want, right? I saw it in SpaceX there in Brownsville. So I seen it in 2 different locations where we missed the mark, right? So I wonder if the staff can provide us with some information of what might be some of these emerging industries, emerging markets that are not on the typical high demand lists, but are gapped in the community, just for us to have that discussion. I'm not suggesting that we make a motion for a particular change or anything like that, just for us to kind of better understand what it looks like, so that maybe we might consider going down that path in the future.
Yeah, let's do this. For our next meeting, I'm gonna ask staff to prepare a discussion of the high demand list, how the process works, what's on the board high demand list, what we're doing at TFC. This is actually germane. We're working with the coordinating board right now. They have some needs resulting from House Bill 8 for our high demand list. And so we are kind of looking at the process and understanding what that is. I mean, understand there are boards, and there's the number 1 job vacancy in Texas right now is registered nurses. It has been for 10 years. It will be for the next 10 years. That is just sort of the natural order of that particular workforce.
Right.
We're hiring a lot more nurses in a lot more different jobs. And so then we have more vacancies. That's just the way it works. A lot of people, governor just stood up a new task force on that. Colleges, community colleges, universities are doing a great job of turning out nurses. We turn out nurses, but it won't shock you to know that there are a number of boards for which nursing is not number one on their list, and it might not even make their top 10 list. You know, truck drivers may be in need of that board, because some of these boards are a few counties in a particular area of the state who may be very good on that. And I think looking at statewide lists, looking at statewide vacancies, you know, we know what's in demand. We also know how we're going to get there, but balancing that out, because, you know, we tend to think of a high school, we tend to think of a community college as serving their area, and they do first. But those students have the option to live anywhere they want in the state. And while I'm sure the community doesn't want them to pick up and move and take their skills elsewhere, and the company and the community would like to make sure that a company creates jobs in that community, if in the intermediate time that student needs to go somewhere else and hone their skills, if only to come back, we can't take those options away from students. So there's a lot of things going on here. Let's ask staff to bring those lists, talk to us about the process. We can discuss then, you know, whether or not we think that those particular lists are meeting our needs. If we want to make a different recommendation to the commission, we can do that as an advisory board anytime we want to. But I think we should come armed with the facts. I think you've raised a good point today. This one, I think we definitely should look into.
The new faces, but all of us, that'd be great.
Yeah, absolutely.
Excellent.
That also include a discussion of remote working possibilities. To your point earlier about rural versus urban, you know, it's possible that those living in a rural community could work remotely in a software or digital, you know, emerging market capacity for another jurisdiction in Texas, another county, another state. And so
I'll tell you what, I agree with you. And so add to your list, let's get somebody from labor market information in here to just talk through the broader term trend list and talk through workforce trends that we're sending. They'll bring a good slideshow. We're going to see. And we're going to run TV right here because I'm too old to be like.
I hear you.
Mr. Chairman, I did want to make one point of clarification in terms of eligible occupations, even right now, and we're certainly going to prepare the information that the board has requested. Currently, occupations could have been on sort of a pre-approved list, but an applicant had the ability to select an occupation outside of that list and have their local workforce development board sign a form, just saying that this is in demand in our area, or it does not have to be on their list. Yes, yes. So we provided kind of a backup of,
Well,
hey,
that's if you had an expansion or a new
exactly.
semiconductor thing coming in or something, that would be a way for them to do that.
So we did want to make sure that it was clear that even if it wasn't on the list right now, but we knew that this was an emerging area, that there was a way for that occupation to be included in this year's application.
Just one more note, we used the high demand list and the target occupation list, but we added, TEA had a CTE occupation list, and we also added those occupations this year. So we'll put together more of a presentation for the next meeting, but just kind of a general overview.
All right, Jay, Melissa, Vanessa, we're live. You've got to jump in. Is there anything
Yes.
you want to add to the conversation?
No.
All good?
I'm
All
fine.
said,
I'm
all
fine.
right.
Thank
Guys, anything else? Is there a
Okay.
motion to adjourn?
I motion to adjourn.
Dr. Kilgore seconds that, so we've been moving second to adjourn. And we're done. Thanks, guys.